Should we talk about trades, players whose value is up and down and underperforming and overperforming? I think it's a good time to do it. Michael Bolton agrees.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I'm just going to put the fries in the bag. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Also, check out LockedOnDaily.com. Sign up for your team's favorite newsletter. That's all I've got to tell you. Do not subscribe. Do not comment. Do not give a thumbs up. I don't want it. I don't want it, and I don't need it, and I don't want you to do it. So don't. What are we doing in this show? Fantasy trades. You know the way that I approach these shows. But if you are new to the channel, welcome, hello, good to see you guys. Yes, I have an accent. Yes, I'm Australian. Yes, I don't know what I'm talking about. But we're here to talk fantasy basketball. But I'm not going to tell you, trade this player for this player right now for instant success. And I am, of course, a 1950s radio broadcaster, but also at the same time, I'm not about that part of it. I'm saying this guy's numbers seem high, and I'm not sure that's going to hold. And this guy's numbers are low, and there's just no way that those numbers will stay that low. When they revert, I have no idea. And do they get to the level I think? Maybe. Or do they drop to the level I think? Maybe, maybe not. But it's about trying to use the levels of probabilities of like, this probably doesn't hold. Let's see if we can cash in on this or take advantage of human psychology and prevailing narratives and short-term panics and all that sort of stuff. That's what we're talking about. We give ranges and ideas of, and it's all so important if you've got these players on your team, like a buy low guy, you go, man, this guy, I got to get rid of him, terrible. And like, hang on, maybe there's a few things here that seem, under every sort of situation, then every angle we look at it, there's going to be improvement. That's what we're here to do. But of course, we want to recap the way we looked at this show 2 weeks ago. Now, usually I use a 2-week reporting period on this stuff. Because there has been a dearth of games over this time frame, just a little bit less, and that's going to be the case over the next couple of weeks as well as we look back on this stuff. We don't get the usual 7-8 game sample. It might be 4 or 5. So some of the numbers haven't reverted or improved or anything as much as maybe in other situations, but that's okay. That's how all this stuff works. Let's just take a look at the names that we had as buy low guys 2 weeks ago. I had Trey Murphy. He was sitting as the 101st ranked player. There were people still questioning whether Trey was going to be a 12-team league guy, whether they should hold or whether they should drop him. Most people, which is you, the smart guys, you knew that was silly and you had to roster him, and he has flown up the board since then, 42nd ranked player on a per-game basis since that time. Jared Allen, though, I thought that there was going to be some improvements, and there was not. 94th, and then he's 105th since then. Now, again, when we talk rankings, when we look at these numbers, if you're 94th or you're 105th, honestly, it's the same. It doesn't actually matter that sort of a difference when you get each sort of area you go down the draft board. Like if you're first and you finish 11th, that is a difference. If you're 11th and you go 22nd, it's a difference. But if you're 40th and you go to 51st, well, the difference is smaller. And then if you're 94th and you go to 105th, well, the difference is negligible. But that's okay. He still didn't get better, and that's what I wanted. Julius Randle did get better, not as much as I hoped. He went from 102nd to 86th. That's a 16-spot increase during that time. I actually think Randle's probably got another 10 spots of improvement there. The last couple of games have been a bit iffy for him. So I guess you could say that Randle still sits on the buy low, but the margin's not as large at the moment. Kobe White, also, I think there is improvement there. Now, you know that I was very down on Kobe White in fantasy draft season. Not this down, but there were people who were looking at him as a top 50 player, a top 60 player. I was like, no. I look at him as a top 90-ish guy, and I think that still sort of holds. But he was 149th. I said I think he's going to be better than this. He was 110th since that time frame. I think we've got a little bit further to go on that. And the last name on there, which absolutely did not work, was Tari, maybe this season. He was 116th, Eason, and there were a couple of games that were struggles, and then since then it's been worse. He's 189th. Now, I firmly believe that Tari Eason is a guy to keep holding, but The beginning of the season, there were concerns about Eason and how did he get enough playing time. We'll go, well, where's he going to play? And then there was a period of time when they were benching Jabari Smith and Eason was playing up and his minutes were going high. But they're going back to Smith a lot more now. So while I do believe we're holding on to Tari Eason, you're more open to the idea of maybe that isn't the case as we move forward. Still, that is an L. I thought he'd improve from 116. He's gotten worse, and now I guess a little bit of the future on Eason's somewhat more clouded. I know you guys are going to love this because this is the recap on the Nikola Vucevic sell high period. We did a Nikola Vucevic sell high in week 2, and he went from 12th to 45th in that period, so that was a win. This one, I know you guys are loving it. You ready for it? He didn't actually get worse in that time frame. The numbers, he was 25th, actually improved to 20th, which again is a small difference, and it's basically like one missed shot over a week that changes that number. But I thought that he'd drop to like 45th or 50th or something along those lines after a really hot stretch there, and he didn't. He continues to shoot really well. And you know what, guys? I will admit, at the end of the season, if Nikola Vucevic remains as a top 25 player, I will very, very clearly admit that I got it wrong. I've got no problem with that. Or my point on Vuce has always been, I do not believe that a career 33% shooter from 3 is now a 48% shooter from 3, or that Nikola Vucevic remains as the best mid-range shooter in the entire NBA. They're the things I don't believe. I still continue to not believe them. He still continues to put up ridiculous numbers, and we'll see when or if it falls. And it might not. It might just be the outlier season of all outlier seasons. But he did not work as a sell high this week, and that's okay. I will still tell you that I believe in it because I believe in the numbers, and I believe in history, and I believe in probabilities. Ja Morant, I thought, had a shot to be able to sort of decline in some of his numbers. People were really fired up about some of his shooting stuff, which was unbelievably high, and his free throws have been really good this season. He didn't actually budge. He went from 26th to 26th. I still think that Ja is probably not the 26th best category league player, and that's what those rankings are. They're weighted -1 per game category ranks. I still don't think that he's the 26th ranked player, but he did maintain it. Cam Johnson was 42nd. He moved down to 65th. I think that 65 is a sort of a reasonable per game expectation as long as he stays on the Nets, which he may not. And that could actually drop lower than that. So I think that sell high was a relatively obvious one. The numbers have bared it out so far, so that's a W. Malik Monk was 33rd. He's gone down to 47th. That was a W as well. I think that Monk, and I love the fact that they're starting him, and a lot of the stuff is through the roof for him at the moment. There is still a bit of a sell high going on for Malik Monk at the moment, but very clear top 100, top 75-ish sort of a player. Well, Tyus Jones, he's actually been able to maintain elite efficiency. Not even elite efficiency, like Vooch level efficiency. He was 50th. He's 45th since then. I believe the sell high is still in play. I'm not going to include him as a sell high on today's show, but I believe it is still in play, and those numbers are very clearly really strong at the moment, and you've still got that extra window. And the longer someone can stay on the sell high list, the easier it is to actually pull off the long-term sell high. And as usual, with all these sell highs, it doesn't have to revert in a week or a day or 2 weeks. I'd use a 2-week reporting period, but if you can still get something out of it and it works in 4 weeks, that's great. Now, the closer you get to fantasy playoffs, you don't want that sort of a lead time, but I think now that's okay. But again, Tyus Jones went from 50th to 45th, so he actually improved a few spots, so it sort of held steady during that time frame. We are about to come back and talk about the actual 5 buy lows for this week and the 5 sell highs for this week. But before I do that, today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Tickets, events. We love going to events. Why wouldn't you love it? It's fun. It's leisure. We enjoy doing these things, but you want to make sure that the process is one of the easiest and best processes that you can possibly have doing that. And that's where Game Time Picks comes in. Game Time Picks is the new feature from the Game Time app. And what it does is it just filters out the fluff. It shows you the best tickets available. So you don't have to waste your time trying to find, is this good? Is this value? I don't know. But Game Time Picks shows you that. It also has so many other features. The all-in pricing, which you can toggle on in the app, is there as well. So you not go, and when you go to checkout, you're not surprised by additional fees. The full price is just showed right there on that ticket. You get the views from your seat, a panoramic view from the seat that you're choosing there, so you know exactly what your view is going to be when you get to the game. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create the account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Well, it is game time. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. At this time of year, or any time of year really, you need to make sure that you are you're taking care of your finances, and that's where Rocket Money can come in. You, I'm sure, will have some subscriptions to services that you don't remember, you might have doubled up on. That happens. It happens to people all the time, and that's where Rocket Money can come in, making it easy to track them. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. It is a personal finance app, the old Rocket Money, and it brings everything together in one place: subscriptions, spending habits, or even your financial goals for the year. Over 5 million users use Rocket Money and has saved a total of $500 million in cancelled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That is rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, so let's talk about some buy low players. Again, understanding the way we're framing this stuff, but I think that with the current production at the moment of Kyrie Irving, there's a little bit of a buy low on that. Now, I'll just put the big caveat out here. We know that in head-to-head leagues, points or categories, the Dallas Mavericks have a 2-game week. Go and check your schedule to see when that 2-week week is. But if you're playing in my suggested schedule, if you're playing in the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl, that is the championship week. And that's not ideal. That is why I wasn't super interested in taking Luka at 3rd or 4th. That's why I didn't want to take Kyrie and back him up with Luka, or take Kyrie at the end of the first round. Kyrie at the moment, he is, I won't say he's struggling necessarily, but it's not the strongest part of his season. Over the last 2 weeks, Kyrie is the 52nd ranked player for a head-to-head category per game basis. For points leagues, he is down almost 6 fantasy points, 5.5, at 34-point game, for the 34 points a game. So what's actually going on? Because Kyrie's numbers, they don't look terrible. He's averaging 20 points a game. He's averaging 4 assists and 4 rebounds, and that's okay. What's going on? Well, his usage is down. His usage is at 22%. And I think we all sort of know Kyrie Irving, and we don't look at that and go, well, Kyrie is a player that's going to be getting the same usage as Nikola Vucevic. That's just not a realistic way to look at what he's going to be doing for the rest of the season. For the totality of the season, he's at 25.5 usage. His percentages are all relatively fine. He's at 50%. That's what he is for the season. He's at 88 from the line. That is what he's at for the season. His assist numbers are a little bit low, but he's also taking and making fewer threes. He's at 5.4 3-point attempts per game. For the year, he's at 6.6. This all ties into usage. Just everything is down. 17.6 shots a game. Kyrie is now at 14.8. So is it realistic that Kyrie is going to be taking the lowest amount of field goals of his career? No, I don't think so. And that's really what this comes down to. Because again, it is possible to look at these numbers and go, 20 points is fine, but that's not what we should be looking at. He should be 23, 24, 25. He should be hitting over 3 threes a game because everything else is in line. He's just doing less of it. And I don't think that's a realistic thing that's going to hold. So I don't think you should be looking at Kyrie as a top 20 player. But if someone is frustrated with the production, and they could be, there are people who are very, very adhered to ranking numbers. If someone's disappointed with that, understand that I think there's pretty easy ways here. Just take 2 extra shots a game. It's not like Dallas made trades or something weird happened. And you can say, but Luka missed some time there. That's all true. But, okay, Kyrie averaged almost 20 shots a game last season. 20. He's already down to 17.6 this season. And now we're down to 14.8. That's over 5 shots a game down from where he was last season. It's not actually over 5, it's 5. So, there's plenty of room here for Kyrie to improve this. If someone was panicking or worried or drafted him and now realized about the 2-game playoff week, you're getting someone like Kyrie who's good and is going to be better than this. Yes, the 2-game week's annoying, but if you're able to acquire him at the price of a top 40 player, I would do that. That's a move that I would be looking into. We're going to go to Boston, and we haven't really done much Boston buy low, sell high work this season. But I actually think that where we're at here with Jaylen Brown, he is there's just a couple of things that are a bit off. Now, there are definite concerns with the Celtics from here on out. That there are going to be random rest periods when they have busy stretches of games, and they're going to do their best to preserve their players, as they should. But this is a rough run of things for Jaylen. Jaylen Brown is the 71st ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's down under 36 fantasy points. I think that he's like a 41 fantasy point guy. I think that he is a top 50 fantasy guy relatively comfortably. So what's actually going on with what is happening with Jaylen Brown at the moment? Well, there are a couple of things. He's only scoring 20 points a game. 20. Why? Well, he's playing 33 minutes, which is down from his 35, but fewer shots. Now, some of that is Porzingis. Some of that is Porzingis returning. That is true. He's down to 16.4 field goal attempts. But last season, with Porzingis there most of the year, he attempted 18 a game. So that's not a realistic thing that he's going to keep doing. And as you can see, most of these numbers are just related to just taking fewer shots. He's at only 5 3-point attempts per game over this time frame. He's at 7.2 for the season. He's been jacking up a ton of threes. And I know everyone complains about Boston and 3-point attempts, but Jaylen's pulled it back down. He's turning the ball over at 3.4 times per game as well, which I don't include when I'm looking at the ranking numbers, but it's still a number that is way higher than usual. For reference again, he was at 2.4 last season. He's only hitting 1.8 threes a game. His rebound numbers are down at 4.8. And again, is that Porzingis? Maybe, but he was at 5.5 last season and he's at 6 this season. So I think he's better than that. Also, we know that there are concerns at times with Jaylen with his free throw shooting. He was at 70% last season, 77 the year before that, 76 the year before that. He sits at 75 this season. That's not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. It's not punt free throw, but average free throw is 79. He's at 58 over the last 5 games. And even if you are punting free throws or this is taken away through -1 numbers or whatever, the fact that he's just not hitting free throws means that your scoring is down. So he's taking fewer field goals. He's taking fewer free throws. And then he's also not hitting them. And I'm just not going to bet that Jaylen Brown's a 58% free throw guy. That doesn't seem like a smart bet to me. So there's going to be improvements there. So do I think Jaylen's a top 30 guy? No, not a chance. Points leagues maybe with about 40, 42 fantasy points he can get to. But at the moment, there's some real struggles. It might be ascribed to Porzingis. There might be worries about rest. If you could get him for a top 60 guy, maybe it's a top 65 guy you could get him for. I'd be interested in it. And I don't think anyone is really thinking about Jaylen as a buy low play. I see people talking buy lows and shows and articles and discussions, and no one really has mentioned Jaylen ever in this period. And they don't really look at this as a necessary downturn in his production. But again, I think there is significant room here for Brown to be better. More scoring, more threes, better free throws, lower turnovers, all that stuff. It should be very easy for that to bump up. And of course, when you're down the way that he is, there often is a period at some point where you go well above your expectations. So he might have a top 30 run coming. He might not. There's ways you could do it. Maybe you just slow increments to get back to where he should be. But he could have a run where he shoots 88 from the line and averages 29 a game. And Tatum rests some games and he does all this stuff. It's all possible. I just think this is definite underproduction from Jaylen Brown. I bet you know this one's coming because it has been one of the worst 2-week stretches of almost any player from Fred VanVleet over these last 2 weeks. The matchups for him against Golden State and Oklahoma City in the NBA Cup cooked him. You might hate Fred VanVleet. It's okay. And you might be like, why did I bother taking Fred VanVleet in round 3? Well, part of the reason you did that is for like 4 straight years, he's been like a top 20 player and all that stuff would add up, right? And he's never been a good shooter. He's a good 3-point shooter, sorry. He's never been a good field goal percentage guy for fantasy. But what he's doing at the moment is the very clear outlier and incorrect in terms of valuing what he does. He is 191st over the last 2 weeks. That is horrific. He is averaging 24 fantasy points. That is also horrific. I think he's a 34 to 36 fantasy point guy. I think that now I have adjusted expectations because that's what we do. I know people will think that I am very stubborn on what I think and I never change, which is just completely incorrect, right? I had VanVleet, I think around 27 to 30 at the start of the year based on -1 and weightings that I use, whatever, around that mark. And that's clearly wrong because one of the things that has happened to VanVleet this season is his passing volume or his assist volume is down. His potential assists are down. His box creation is down. So they aren't using him as an initiator as much this season. And I don't know that that's changing. That is the big factor to me. That is what I have adjusted mainly on my projections. Is that the passing volume, the ability to get 8 assists probably isn't there. And that, I don't really know where it's gone. The thing that's happening at the moment is that everything else is in the toilet. This man is shooting 28% from the field. Not from three, from the field. He also apparently can't hit free throws, nor can he take them. 50% from the line on half an attempt per game. He's at 18% from three. He's taking just 5 twos a game. He has an ungodly 33.9 true shooting percentage. He's averaging half a steal. You know what this guy does? 38% from three, 1.8 steals, 0.7 blocks, 18 points, 8 assists. Again, I don't think the assists are necessarily getting back to 8. I think there's been a change there. But nearly every one of these numbers is comical. It's embarrassing. He is in a terrible slump, and he does this. There are people who are like, I wasted this pick. I wasted my round 3 pick or my round 4 pick on Fred VanVleet. And they're done. How can this guy be that bad? And the other thing, the psychological part of it, is because he was playing on the low-volume knockout days in the NBA Cup, everyone watched it. And everyone who had it in fantasy hyper-focused on it. So there's immense value here. I don't think you have to give up anything, really. The way that people are reacting to this, you won't have... If you could give up a top 75 player, I think you can get Fred VanVleet back. So, do it. Like, there is just no way that an NBA player as accomplished as Fred VanVleet is a 17% three-point shooter or a 28% field goal guy, or even half a steal or 10 points. He's playing 36 minutes a night. None of that stuff he's going to hold. It is a horrendous slump. It's one of the worst slumps that we've had all season, but he's going to get better. I would be stunned if it doesn't. Very, very stunned if it doesn't. I'm going into a little bit more depth on some of these players in today's show because, again, there are no games that count outside of the NBA Cup, which doesn't count for fantasy unless you're on Sleeper, I've been told. It does count on Sleeper, but of course, Sleeper's not real fantasy. So, whatever that it counts on Sleeper, because you don't actually have to use that game because, again, Sleeper is not fantasy, and they do everything they can to just make their experience worse and different in a bad way to other providers. So good for them. That's what they do. But it does count, it can count, because of course you don't have to count it on Sleeper, but it is available for you to count. It does not count anywhere else. That's the only game today, and that's why I'm just going a little bit longer on this stuff. Today's episode, though, is also brought to you by old mates over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready and tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL. So you're sitting there being a chill guy with the fellas. You're watching the big game as State is taking on Tech. They're not NFL teams, but we're just doing stereotypes. You're watching and you go, hey boys, you ready for some live betting? And they go, what do you mean? I don't have enough devices to open up all the live stats. You go, don't worry. FanDuel has got it all in one place. We open up the live bets and they're there. They're bang. We can see them. Look right there on my fake phone. In fact, look at my real phone. There it is. They're there. All the live bets. It's there. And then the live stats, same spot. The live play-by-play, bang, same spot as well. Man, how did you do it? Well, I didn't. FanDuel did. And that is how you can sell it to your friends. So go ahead and get that $150 in bonus bets as well if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook? Yeah, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Today's episode is also brought to you by Built Rewards. Yes, if you are a renter, listen up. This Built Rewards is a way that you're able to just take advantage of the fact that you are renting, as so many are, because you can now earn points on rent payments, the same as you do with your groceries or your travel. You can earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending, and it's no extra cost. You redeem the points for flights or hotel stays or even future rent payments. There's over 500 airlines as a part of this and 700,000 hotels in their program, so the possibilities are endless. You can start earning points on the rent that you're already paying by go to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That is joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure you use that link so that they know that we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. All right. Let's go to San Antonio. And the next two buy lows are going to be based on a few things that often... Okay, so buying low on somebody, you might have a player who's injured to start the season. We're talking Devin Vassell. You might have a player that's injured to start the season and someone's been stashing them all that time on their IL slot. And buying low, once you get the news, hey, this player's about to return, you can't do that, right? Because that person's waited all this time to get the player back. But when the player does return and their first 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks are subpar as they're getting back into sort of the groove of things, that's when a buy low really works, because this person who's got them might be like, man, I've had this guy all this time. Why did I waste my time having this guy in my IL slot waiting for nothing? That's when you can hit on a buy low, and that's what the next two are going to be about. So Vassell, and largely, again, the last game from him, terrible, like dreadful. What did he shoot? 4 points on like 1% shooting? Something terrible, and played 25 minutes. Prior to that, he was starting to ramp up, but people will remember that in their brains. And the reason I know a lot of this stuff, right, is obviously I am just in tune with the whole world and one of the highest level geniuses you'll ever see. That's clear. But also is that people tell me, and I see comments, and I see people getting frustrated. I'm going to do this with them. I see it, right? So I know where the frustration builds. It's not for everybody. Not everyone will feel this way, and that's okay. That's about discussions or negotiations and how that works. And part of I think, the value of a buy low, sell high show is that if you've got someone like a Devin Vassell, maybe this is soothing. You go, okay, maybe I don't need to panic. I hope you get that idea anyway. Vassell, over the last 2 weeks, is the 200th ranked player in category leagues. It's pretty bad, yeah? He's averaging only 25 fantasy points. That's waiver wire stuff. That's very much not good. He's averaging 15 points a game. Okay. He's shooting 58 from the line. Why would that be the case? No reason. We know that free throws are one of the most variable categories on a season-to-season basis. So, yeah, there can be wild swings, but also game-to-game. This stuff changes wildly. Week to week, it's all over the shop. Free throw percentage. It's a hard category to bank on. Over the course of a season, in a roto league, yes, the numbers can balance out. But again, this is last season, the most variable year-on-year category is free throw percentage. So even that part of it, there are wild changes that can happen. Vassell, for example, shot 80% last season from the line, 78 the year before that, 84 the year before that. He's at 80 this season, except over the last 5 games, he's at 58. It's weird, yeah? There's no reason why it should be like that. He's also seeing so many of his numbers like fall off. He's at 15 points a game in 27 minutes. He's at 24 usage, which is lower than his season number, but there are reasons for that. When you're playing the lower minutes, it's obviously easier to get some usage up, and that's coming down. But look, 2.4 assists per game. Chris Paul being there will have an impact on his assists. I think that's true. But there's no reason he can't be a 3.5 assist player. He's at 52.5 true shooting, 58 from the line. He's not blocking shots. He's not scoring. He's not hitting threes. He's only at 27 minutes, and he's still coming off the bench. To me, Devin Vassell is very clearly this team's second best player, and they are just taking it extraordinarily cautious with him. Last season, he averaged 19, 4, and 4, with a steal a game on 47 and 80. They're brilliantly good numbers. Maybe the assists drop a bit. Maybe they decide that Steph Castle, they won't, or Jeremy Sohan are better players. They're not. Although Sohan's been pretty good. There's just so much here. The free throws are the clear outlier, but the scoring, the minutes, even the three-point shooting is at 33% over the last 5 games. He was at 39 or 37 last season, 39 the year before, and he's at 40 for the season. I would be looking at him as like a top 100 player, maybe with the potential to go top 75. And the further you get into the season, the more that projected rank will come in. But for now, like, give up your 2 worsts. Other people are going to know I've held on it'll be better, and that's cool. You say, good luck to you. I believe that'll happen as well. So that's okay. The negotiation's over. But there'll be, you know it. You know there's someone in your league. You know there's wild discussions or decisions made by people every day. And they'll be like, why did I bother with this guy? I waited, and he comes back 11 games. He sits out every second game, and he's doing this. And he's averaging 24 minutes a night. Like, get out of here. Yeah, that's when you jump in. The next one is similar, but also a little different, and it's Big Mark Williams. And you'll say, Josh, what are you talking about? And this is what I'm talking about. Mark Williams' numbers, he is the 192nd ranked player since he returned. Okay, that's fine. He's averaging 20 fantasy points. All right. We know that we hadn't seen Mark Williams for almost a year. And as he was getting close to returning, if I tweet something out, hey, Mark Williams is looking to come back, there would be someone, 1-2 people that would be like, I don't know why you guys glaze this guy so much. He's bad. Why has everyone got such a hard on for this player? He's never going to be healthy. He's never going to play, right? That would happen. And most likely, that person doesn't roster Mark Williams on their team. But when we see what Mark is doing, there are going to be the people who might have had him and stashed him and they believe Nick Richards is still good or still better. That's true. They might think that Mark Williams is going to get hurt at any point, which is also possible. Maybe that happens. I don't know. But what we're seeing from Mark at the moment, I think people are still actually underrating where the upside can go. He's only playing 13 minutes a night. There are some who might think he tops out at 20. That's not me. I think he pushes up to 26 or so. I think he's going to be a very clear top 100 player. I think he's going to very clearly push towards 30 fantasy points a game. He's averaging 9 and 5 in his limited minutes. He's a good free throw shooting big man who's a good field goal guy, who blocks shots, who showed a little bit of passing improvement as well. And I think that we're at this stage here where the minutes are ramping up. They're going slowly. So people are loving that it's there. But even though it's not a Vassell case where they're going to be like, oh, I've held this guy and why is it taking so long? I don't think people are having that idea. I just think that people might still actually be underrating the level that he gets to later on. So that you got to be cautious about how you approach this and what you give up. But if I would be okay with a top 100 player for Mark Williams, understand that there is risk associated with it, but I think that there is going to be a period, I'm guessing, at some point this season when this man rolls at top 50 for a period of time. It won't necessarily be prolonged and will take a little bit of time to get there. But I do think that will come, and I think that the people that roster Mark Williams, some of you, maybe, I don't know, but some of you may not think that that is possible for him. I do, and that is why I would look at him as a buy low guy. This will take time, though. Let's talk about the other side of the equation now, the guys that I believe are overperforming and you might be able to cash in on it. And we're going to start currently in Miami. I could have put Tyler Hero on this list. I still believe he is a little bit of a sell high, but I'm going to go with Jimmy Butler for a few reasons. One of the biggest games you'll ever see, Jimmy Butler put in yesterday. And there will be somebody out there. There'll be somebody watching this video. They'll be like, yeah, of course. Of course he did that because Jimmy Butler now is in a contract year. Jimmy Butler is putting in these big games to show how much he's got left in the tank so that teams will want to trade for him. And he's putting in that effort now so he can get traded to a different team. There'll be people who think that. And that's good for them. Love that they think that. And that's where we can cash in. Because honestly, if that's the case, if Jimmy does that, well, again, that's an indictment on him as a player. Does that mean that when he goes to that new team, then he just stops trying because he's gotten there now? Which, again, would be a reason why it is a sell high. Because if he does put in this extra effort to get traded, and then he gets traded, that means the motivation to get traded is gone, and then his numbers drop, I guess. Also, he can still have big games, very clearly. He's a master of narrative. Or people love providing a narrative. Oh, playoff Jimmy, look how good he is. And then they ignore the 6 bad playoff games he has in a row. So Jimmy put up this monster game yesterday. Unbelievable stuff. He had 19 rebounds in that game. Over the last 2 weeks, he's the 18th ranked player in category leagues. He's I think he's around 50th for the season. I think that's where he ends up, 40 to 50, that zone. He's averaging 46 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks. That's huge. But there's a lot here that's just, do we believe that Jimmy Butler's a 43% three-point shooter? No, we don't, right? But that's what he's shooting over the last 2 weeks. No one should believe that. He has, to his credit, Jimmy Butler has improved as a three-point shooter. He still doesn't take much in terms of volume, but he does hit them at a better rate. Butler's at 36 for the season. He shot 41 from 3 last season on very low volume, of course, and 35 the year before that. But at the moment, they're rolling at 43%. Still low volume, but he's still hitting them at a really high number. It's 1.4 a game. He's at 60% on his twos, and Jimmy Butler can be a pretty good 2-point player, except not really. 52 last season, 56 the year before that, 52 the year before that. 60, not a real number. So he's doing both at the same time. 2-point numbers way up, 3-point numbers way up, which of course leads to him being a 59% shooter over this time frame. Now, over the course of this season, Jimmy Butler, for some reason, can't hit free throws. I don't know why. He's at 78% from the season. In fact, over the last 5 games, he's at 77. And this man has been a high-volume, high-free throw guy all the way through. So there's actually room for that to be able to improve. But also, that's 19 games worth. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe he's just in a bad free throw spot. I don't know. As we know, that varies quite a bit. But the field goal and the free throw stuff, that is just not going to hold. He's also averaging 8.6 rebounds, largely because he got 19 boards in the last game. He is, over the course of his career, 5.3, 5.9, 5.9. He's at 6.1 this season. It's a big difference. He's not turning the ball over, and he's never been a high turnover player. That's okay, but he's at 1.2. That's a really low number. He was at 1.7 last season. That's a difference. He's at 0.8 blocks a game over this time frame. Last season, 0.3. The year before that, 0.3. The year before that, 0.5. This season, 0.4. So everything in the last 5 games, not everything, but a lot of things. Rebounds up 30%, 50% actually. Steals are at 1.6 when he's at 1.3 for the season. He was at 1.3 last season. Yeah, he was at 1.8 the year before that, so maybe that holds, but maybe it doesn't. Field goals up, way up. 3-pointers, way up. Turnovers, way down. Twos, way down, or way up, sorry. So use the psychology, use the current production, use that to try and say, hey, this is Jimmy. Now, you won't get a top 20 player back, but top 30 I'd be very interested in doing. If I could get that back if I had Jimmy Butler, I would absolutely use this, because you might say, well, maybe let him string 2 or 3 together. I don't think he can. I don't think he will string 2 or 3 together. I think he can still have these big games, but as you get older, they become more intermittent. And the consistency is where you lose that elite level star status. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he just does this for a period of time. But I think that while we've got no games on, it is the time to strike on sort of deals like this. I love maximum Derrick White, and he's been unbelievably good, better than I could have expected in Boston. Honestly, there's no way that I thought that he'd be, taking the ball out of guys like Jaylen Brown's hands at times or Drew Holiday's hands. I didn't think he'd necessarily be that good. He at the moment is putting up some huge numbers. Remember that I use weighted per game numbers for head-to-head category rankings, because I don't believe that Giannis is the 37th best category league player for the season, as a straight 9-cat ranking would tell you. I don't believe that to be true. Therefore, I'm not going to use those rankings as any basis of anything. So Derrick White is the 30th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging 38 fantasy points in that time frame. That's obviously pretty good. And how's he getting there? Well, I'll tell you how he's not getting there. He's actually not shooting that well from the field. He's at only 35%, which is, honestly, that's going to improve. But there are things that he is doing that are just pushing this number absolutely through the roof. And I'm sure you can tell what they are. Or, if you're watching on video, they're on the screen. He's only averaging 13 points, but he is hitting 3 threes a game. He's also seeing his free throw rate jump. Last season, 2 free throws a game. The season before, 2. This season, 2. The last 5 games, 3.2. There have been guys out during that time frame, which has helped. But, that is, again, a 50... You might not think as much, but it's a 50% increase. 2.1 to 3.2 is a 50% increase in free throw attempts. And when you're hitting about 81, that's a big difference. But here's where it is. He is an unbelievably good defender, Derrick White. He averages 1.1 steals per game. He averaged 1 steal per game last season. He averaged 0.7 steals per game the year before that, and 0.9 the year before that. He's at 2.4 over the last 5 games. 2.4. So, yeah, that's not going to hold. He's also one of the best guard shot blockers you'll ever see. He's at 1.4 over the last 2 games. Last 2 weeks, 5 games. So, while you might sit here and say, yeah, he can block a shot a game, I agree with you, he can. But 0.4 blocks a game is a big difference. 1.2 steals per game extra is a big difference. Bring those away, and yeah, regress his shooting back up, and he's not this player. I love him, but he's not this player. So, I'm just going to have a look at this. If I look at regular, straight 9-cat rankings, because some people will go by that, and they will swear by it. They will use those numbers to quote at me all the time about how good a player is. And over the last 2 weeks, he's the 21st ranked player. He's the 16th ranked player for the total season based on those numbers. So if you've got Derrick White, could you get a top 25 player back? I'd be bloody trying to. I absolutely would be trying to do that. Because that, to me, is an unbelievably gigantic W if you're able to do that. Let's go to Portland. And I know he's annoying. I know that it's not, or it hasn't been a long-term thing, but you've always got to try and cash in on Jeremy Grant. You have to, because the Ides of March will hit. Grant, over the last 2 weeks, is ranked 57th. He's averaging over 30 fantasy points in that time. He's hitting almost 4 threes a game. And the thing that's also crazy about Jeremy Grant is that one of the outlier stats, which I use based on a percentage increase over projected season numbers. The fact that he's averaging 4.2 rebounds and that comes out as an outlier stat is outrageous for a man that plays his position. But it is. He averaged 3.5 rebounds last season. He's at 3.6 this season. So him going to 4.2 is actually an outlier. He's at 1.2 steals per game. He's at 1 block per game. I don't know that he's going to hold those numbers up. He was at 0.6 blocks per game last season. Now, to be fair to him, he is averaging a block per game this season. So maybe that holds. But I'll tell you what's not going to hold, I'm going to guess, is 46% shooting from 3. He has been very good. 40% on the nose, 3-point shooting the last 2 seasons. He's at 38 overall for this season. So there is some room to improve. But you add 46% there with 8 threes a game with, unbelievably, yes, an increase in rebounds, an increase in threes made and defensive stats, and Grant is actually putting together a nice run. 16, 4, and 2 with over a steal and a block, shooting threes at a high rate. You'd love that. He's hit 12 threes combined in his last 2 games. But I don't think that Grant is going to be available to play at the end of the season. If I could get any top 100 player, an immediate yes for me. I don't actually care if I lose out in the short term, if he goes on another top 40 run, because again, over his last week, which is only 2 games, of course, it's a very small sample, like he's a top 50 guy, and that's just not real. So if I can get any top 100 guy for Jeremy Grant, absolute no-brainer. It is a harder one to pull off, but when this man has put together the last 2 games, 32 points with 8 threes, and 2 steals and a block, and 17, 6, and 3 with 2 steals and 4 dribbles in his last 2 games, that's when you hit. Now, close your eyes and avoid the fact that he had 3 points on 8% the game before, but he's had actually, over the last 6 games, 5 relatively strong performances. And all of those games with multiple threes, apart from the one where he had 3 points. I just want out of the Jeremy Grant business. And if that's any sort of top 100-ish sort of player, I'd do that. The last 2 players play for the same team on the sell highs. And you've got a window here of probably less than 48 hours. Andrew Wiggins is number 1 on this list. So obviously the team's the Golden State Warriors. Am I just telling you this because Dennis Schroeder is arriving? No. That's a part of it. But Wiggins has also got this factor in where he's outperforming expectations. That's going to come down. And then Schroeder's going to come in as well, which probably causes a double hit. So people might be factoring in the Schroeder arrival as an impact, a down impact on Wiggins, without understanding that his actual numbers are actually way high anyway. So there's going to be a double whammy hit, I believe, coming for Wiggins. He is 75th over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging almost 33 fantasy points. I think that he is probably going to remain a 12-team league guy, but in the 110 to 130 range, not in the top 80. So what's actually been going on? Well, really, really easy. Like if you want to just boil this down to one thing, he's hitting 55% from 3. That's easy, right? That's the simplest explanation. If you want one thing to convince you of why Andrew Wiggins is a sell high, disregarding Dennis Schroeder arriving, he's hitting 55% from 3, which means he's hitting 2.8 threes a game, which is bumping up his field goals to 50%. He's also at 79 from the line. He's averaging 19 points per game, and chuck that in that he's averaging 1.8 steals too. When for the season, he's at 1 steal. And guess how many he averaged last season? You'll be embarrassed at the number. 0.6 steals per game last season. The year before that, 1.2. The year before that, 1.1. So is 1.8 an outlier? Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. So there will be a discount on Wiggins because of Schroeder arriving, and people might be hesitant. But there's also further stuff that could fall off unbelievably for what he's doing. It's not like he's rolling at super high usage, 24 usage over his last 4 games. Just 29 minutes over that time as well. So maybe that minutes number doesn't actually change when Schroeder arrives. But this stuff will. Irrespective of Dennis. He's not averaging 1.8 steals. He's not hitting 55% from 3. And he's not rolling with a 65 true shooting. He's just not doing that. So this is going to fall. So if I could get a top 90 player for Andrew Wiggins, or a top 100 guy probably, I would do it. It might be hard to do. And people will be wary of the Schroeder arrival. But you got about 48 hours until the Schroeder impact, tied in with whenever this hit comes. And if they come at the same time, people might actually look at, like, their opinion is done. Like, this window is narrow. It's very narrow. Because you're going to have production and maybe usage and role get impacted all at the same time. So your window is narrow. Now, obviously, I told you that the last player we're going to talk about plays for that same team. The old Golden State Warriors. Well, he hasn't played there yet, but he will play there now. And that, of course, it is Dennis Schroeder. So, again, I don't really know exactly what's going to happen with Dennis Schroeder. I think in the end he will end up being a droppable player, but I don't know that. And I think that most people would be looking at him as a guy we hold on to at this point and see where it goes. But there are others, adamantly, when I've talked about I think he might be a drop, who are like, no, what are you talking about? They need him in this role. He's awesome. Steve Kerr's out here. He's a two-way guard that we need, and Steph's going to play off ball, and Schroeder's going to be in charge of all that stuff. And all that is possible, right? But my big thing here with Schroeder, in terms of projections, well, he's been 70th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He was obviously top 30 earlier in the season. He's averaging 31 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks in Brooklyn, averaging 18 points a game, 2 threes, 7 assists, shooting 53% from the field. All right, there are a number of things there you go, well, could he average 7 assists per game? I guess so. That's possible. It seems unlikely with Steph and Draymond also handling the ball. And in Brooklyn, it was nobody else doing it. Right, that's true. But will he maintain 53% shooting? That's a really high number. It seems unlikely. 63% true shooting seems unlikely. And much like Wiggins, it's not just about the trade. It's about there are numbers here that just weren't going to hold anyway. He wasn't going to be a 63% two-point guy, 64% two-point guy. He wasn't going to be a 63% true shooting player. He might not be a 1 steal per game guy. He's never really been that sort of steals guy. But the main thing is, he's just playing 34 minutes a night in Brooklyn. Golden State, you know who plays 34 minutes a night? Nobody. So they've still got Podziemski, Kuminga, Wiggins, Hield, Waters, Payton, Moody, Anderson. Now, they might cut the rotation down, but do I really think that a player like Dennis Schroeder is going to come in and he's going to be the team leader in minutes? Seems really unlikely to me. Will he be the guy that's running everything the way he was in Brooklyn? Seems pretty unlikely to me. Will he be the guy that is running up there in terms of usage as the second highest usage guy? Seems unlikely to me. And will he do all of that while maintaining 63% true shooting, while attempting 13 plus shots a game? It seems all unlikely. So while you might think that it's perfect in Golden State and the person you're trading with might think that, and that's all true, they might think that. There are just certain things that have almost no shot of being able to hold. So if I could get any top 120 player for Dennis Schroeder, maybe not, top 120 is almost waiver-ish sort of guy. But let's say a guy that if you traded for them, you'd start them as one of your best 10 guys, I would do it. I think the Schroeder can have periods of time where he's a usable player, but he's more going to be a streamable sort of guy because losing 34 minutes down to 30, along with an efficiency drop, along with a usage drop, along with a ball handling drop, all that means that he's going to be a sizable loss in production. That is all sizable. So I would be trying to get something out of it before we actually see what happens. He will start, yes. That doesn't mean he plays 34 minutes or he's able to maintain that level of efficiency or that level of assists. None of that stuff is guaranteed or even really remotely likely. But we don't know. I'm taking an educated guess, but your time frame to be able to, if you think that's going to happen, if you agree with me, your time to be able to sell high on that is probably within the next 2 days before he actually makes his first appearance for the Warriors for the season. And that is a buy low, sell high, overperforming, underperforming, struggling, booming, whatever you want to call it show. So enjoy the NBA Cup today. There are no fantasy games on, so get your lineup sorted, work out what's happening for the end of the week, remembering you got high volume days on Thursday and Saturday. Don't hit subscribe on this video or leave any comments. I don't want it. What I do want for you, though, is to just enjoy the day. Recognize something good. Take some time away from whatever you're doing and just sit there and go, hey, you're actually doing all right in this area. We can work on things, we can improve, we can figure out what we're doing, but I'm doing okay. There's always going to be someone that hates on you. Don't you be the cheerleader in that area. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.